Good morning, Charlotte. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Hey, that's great. This is going to be so weird because there's a whole bunch of people online who we can't hear. Uh, it's nice to hang out with you. Good to see
Yeah.
you. Welcome everyone to the Michigan Environmental Council's Capital Connection. I'm really excited. This is the first time we're doing this. I think I'm going to put in the chat a little bit of background information, and there we go. And we're going to get rolling. Let me check our participants. We got 10 folks on so far. Okay. Bear with me because this is my first time doing this. It's my first time both on Zoom and the first time on a webinar for the Michigan Environmental Council. Charlotte is a little bit more of an experienced hand at this, so Charlotte, if I'm messing it up, just feel free to be like, Conan, come on, man.
My general philosophy with you, Kevin. So.
I know. Everybody, thank you for joining us. Thank you for supporting the work that MEC does. This briefing is staged specifically for our supporters like you. We wanted to let you know that the work that we're doing goes on, and the support that you give us is having a real impact in this moment of significant change and crisis. As I said, it is our first one, so bear with me as I make inevitable mistakes as we go along. A couple of housekeeping measures. First, in the interest of keeping this to the brief time frame that we've laid out for it and respecting your time, this is going to be more of a one-way conversation between me and Charlotte about water issues and how we're responding in this time of COVID. If you do have questions, there is a little button at the bottom of your screen for Q&A, and please feel free to post your questions there. I'll do my best to monitor those and incorporate them into the conversation today with Charlotte, and if for some reason we don't get to those, then we'll make sure that we follow up with them by email. We're also excited and happy to talk to you personally by phone or connect over email. As this is our first one, if you have questions or suggestions that we don't get to, ideas that we can make this better, please send us an email at briefings@environmentalcouncil.org. That email is in the chat, and those will get to us and we'll follow them up as quickly as we can. Today, we're going to talk about what we're doing in Lansing to ensure that Michiganders all have access to clean, affordable, safe water. Water is a human right from our perspective. It's a basic necessity of life. And in this day and age, in a state that is blessed with so much water, nobody should ever have to live without it. Not having this right is especially problematic right now during COVID, when so many people need it for basic human health. And it has become a commodity in some ways so that people can't even access if you live in Michigan's largest city. Thousands of homes in the city of Detroit continuing to go without access to clean and safe water. This morning, I'll be chatting with Charlotte Jameson. Charlotte is our program director for legislative affairs, drinking water, and energy. And she has been leading our efforts in the state capitol and helping to coordinate the environmental community's response from a legislative and administrative perspective. Last week, Charlotte convened a conference call with more than 100 activists statewide who raised critiques and concerns, also expressed support for actions that the administration has already taken, and laid out some of the actions that they believe the environmental community and our state government need to be taking. Most of the activists that we work with sit on the front lines in these communities, and we try to be the amplification of their voice in the state legislature. Charlotte works with them pretty regularly, so you're going to get to hear directly from her about the experiences that she's having and the things that she's hearing about how she's interfacing with state government and what our policy and programmatic opportunities are. Charlotte, thanks for agreeing to do this. I know I'm like the boss, right? You didn't have all that much ability to say no, but you actually said yes right away, which was really cool. So thanks. And welcome. So why don't we start, Charlotte, by you just giving us a little sense of all the activity that's gone around water related to COVID, what's happening in the state capitol, and in particular, what has the administration done to respond?
Yeah, so there are a number of groups, obviously, Flint Rising, We the People, People's Water Board, who have been advocating for access to clean, safe, affordable water for years. And a lot of this has come obviously to a head with COVID and the need to access water, both to, live a healthy, comfortable life, but also to be able to wash your hands and protect yourself. Governor Whitmer, thankfully, after much prodding by, again, those impacted groups, as well as MEC and other statewide groups, agreed and recognized the importance of that access to water during this time, and issued an executive order on the March 28th, which did a few things that were really important. Required water utilities to restore water access to homes that had been shut off due to non-payment or damaged plumbing. It also required some reporting from water utilities. So water utilities now have to, on April 12th, tell us how many people are still shut off, what the timeline is around restoration, and some other really critical data points that we need access to, and for which there's some discrepancy between what groups are seeing on the ground versus what cities are saying is the reality to their mind. And then finally,
You mentioned that the governor's executive order restored access to water. Some people have been framing this as a shut-off moratorium, but you made the point to me recently that it is not a moratorium.
Yeah, it's in a way a de facto moratorium. So that it doesn't prohibit shutoffs, but it requires restoration. So water utilities are not gonna, one would hope, and we'll, watchdog this, but are not going to shut people off and then turn around and restore them. So, in a way, it would have been, I think, beneficial to have a moratorium on shutoffs, but I think this achieves an important outcome regardless. And then,
sorry, I interrupted you there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really important potential shortcoming, or just piece to highlight in terms of the technical side here. The one other thing the EO did was it created a grant program to ensure that local utilities had the funding they need to restore people's water. So we talked about one shortcoming. I would say the other shortcomings of the EO is that it doesn't address affordability long-term, or any bill arrearages that are accruing during this time that people have their water turned back on. It doesn't require any sort of local oversight around water restorations. And it doesn't create water distribution stations so that people can have access to water while they're waiting for their water to be turned back on.
And just to revisit that question about shutoffs. So this doesn't explicitly prevent shutoffs, but because a water utility would be required to immediately turn the water back on if they did shut it off, it's behaving like a shutoff. Moratorium.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks. You had this meeting recently with more than 100 activists, and we have also heard from our own staff, Sandra Turner Handy in the city of Detroit, that despite the inaction of the executive order, some of the challenges are still emergent and are going unaddressed. Can you talk a little bit about what the community concerns are that you heard and how MEC is participating with our partner advocates to elevate those to the legislature and the governor?
Yeah, the major concern right now, I think, is around, well, two major concerns right now is one, we really do need immediate water distribution stations set up. There are still thousands of people without access to water. And there are a lot of groups, again, that are putting themselves and their volunteers in harm's way to continue to distribute water to people who don't have it. And frankly, we really need the state government and local governments to work to set up those stations so that local activists and volunteers are not having to put themselves and their families at risk.
Right.
But then people still have access to water while they're waiting to be turned back on. So I think that's paramount. The other big problem is that we really see that water utilities, particularly Detroit, are moving too slowly to turn people back on and are continuing to dispute the kind of overall numbers of people who don't have access to water. And so we really do need that local and statewide oversight by impacted residents and by water system experts, public health experts, to make sure that local water utilities are doing this in a sound way and in a way that's protecting public health.
And we had a bunch of calls from our frontline organizations for sign-on letters to the administration, which we've been party to. What's been the focus of some of those?
A number of sign-on letters went in prior to the governor's executive order, and those were around calling on statewide action to address water restoration and water shutoffs. A lot of the attention has also obviously shifted post that EO to the process around water restoration. The most recent calls from local groups are on this oversight piece, asking for local oversight boards to be created, specifically in Detroit, and then for the governor's new statewide environmental justice advisory group to serve in that function statewide. There's also, again, continued calls for water distribution stations to be set up, and then for some sort of solution to affordability over the long run and in the near term to be addressed.
You mentioned the long term. We never want to miss taking advantage of a crisis, right? And we have been talking around the table at MEC about some longer term solutions around affordability and assistance and oversight. What do you think MEC's water advocacy shapes up like around those areas coming out of the COVID experience?
Yeah, so again, a lot of local impacted groups have been advocating for a rate structure similar to what Philadelphia has put in place that would set rates based on income for low-income customers. So it would cap the water burden and make sure that low-income customers are not paying more than a certain percentage of their income for water bills, because we really want to make sure that these water bills are keeping low and are affordable in the long run. There's also other really critical things that we need to see happen in a lot of homes to protect health, and that's primarily flushing. In order to prevent lead contamination and bacterial contamination, we really want people to be able to run their water for 5 minutes every morning to make sure that we're flushing those systems. And a lot of folks don't feel comfortable doing that because they think it's going to drive up their bills. There are rate structures that can be established and have been established in some places where folks are guaranteed a minimum amount of water that they need to protect their health and to have, access to water that they need to live comfortable lives. And so there are rate structures that can be set up to achieve that in an affordable manner. And then finally, I would say Michigan is one of, I think, 6 states that has no statewide oversight or regulation around water utilities. On the electric and gas side, the Public Service Commission regulates rate setting by those utilities. There's no similar structure on the water side. It's all local. And we think that's really a concern. It limits transparency and it limits oversight. And we'd love to see a Public Service Commission role within water utilities as well.
I think it's really important that we stay focused on that long term too. I mean, as this crisis abates, we have thousands of residents whose water has been restored because of the governor's executive order. And the question is going to arise, what happens when the emergency is declared over? And do we go back to business as usual, or do we take this as an opportunity to really enact long-term systemic change that provides people that access to clean water? I know, Charlotte, that we also have, we talked a lot about municipal water systems today, and our wells. We have thousands, if not millions, of Michigan residents who are also on well and septic. And some of those systems are failing, and those residents are also placed in similar jeopardy. Hopefully we can tackle that next time with you.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really critical piece of the puzzle and something that hasn't gotten a lot of focus yet.
Well, we'll try and get Eli and Joe to tee that up as a topic, and maybe bring you and Tom Zimnicki from the staff on as well, so we can talk about rural issues. Charlotte, thanks so much for being a part of my first one here. And everybody who listened in, thank you. I hope we tackled your questions as they came up the best we could. Look for a follow-up email from us with a little bit more information. We'll send you some links to resources on our website. And again, if you have questions or feedback, suggestions about how we can do this better, this is our first one, so this is the moment to shape the future. Send us an email at briefings@environmentalcouncil.org. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay engaged.